The morning mist hung thick over the firing line when Sarah approached the Barrett. Every voice on the range had gone silent. She was nobody special, just the supply clerk who counted bullets and logged serial numbers. The SEAL operators watched, with barely concealed amusement as she wrapped her fingers around the massive rifle. There was no tremor in her grip, no uncertainty in her stance. When the thunderous crack split the coastal air, time seemed to stop. For nearly 4 seconds, the only sound was the distant crash of Pacific waves against the cliffs below. Then came the metallic ring that changed everything. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The steel target at 3,200 meters sang with perfect impact. As she stepped back from the weapon, returning it to Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez without a word, the silence stretched endlessly. She was no longer just the inventory girl. She was no longer invisible. And every operator on that range suddenly realized they had no idea who Sarah Mitchell really was. The California sun had barely burned through the marine layer when Sarah Mitchell made her rounds through Building 47 at Camp Pendleton. Her clipboard held the morning's weapon inventory checklist, a mundane task that had become her perfect camouflage over the past 18 months. The supply depot's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she moved methodically between the rifle racks, checking serial numbers against her computerized tracking system. Each Barrett M82A1, each precision scope, each piece of specialized equipment received the same careful attention to detail that had kept her invisible among the base's elite personnel. At 27, Sarah had perfected the art of being unremarkable. Her auburn hair stayed pulled back in a regulation bun, and her utility uniform hung loose enough to disguise the athletic frame beneath. Wire-rimmed glasses and a slightly hunched posture completed the illusion of someone more comfortable with spreadsheets than with the lethal instruments she cataloged daily. The other personnel saw exactly what she wanted them to see: a dedicated but unremarkable civilian contractor who took her paperwork seriously. The morning inventory revealed the same troubling pattern she had been tracking for weeks. Rifle number 7439 showed signs of unusual wear on the bolt mechanism, despite maintenance logs indicating minimal use. Scope number 2847 had been returned, with optical alignment issues that should not have occurred under normal training conditions. Most concerning of all, 3 Barrett rifles had been cycled through maintenance in the past month with problems that seemed almost deliberate. Sarah made careful notes in her personal log, a separate record she kept hidden beneath the official documentation. The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted her concentration. Master Chief Samuel Brooks entered the depot, his weathered face bearing the serious expression that typically meant official business. Behind him walked Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez, the leader of SEAL Team 7, whose reputation for precision and discipline was legendary throughout the special operations community. Rodriguez carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had never encountered a mission he could not complete, his dark eyes taking in every detail of the supply room with practiced assessment. "Mitchell," Master Chief Brooks addressed her with the respectful but distant tone reserved for civilian contractors. "The lieutenant commander needs to requisition equipment for this morning's long-range qualification exercise." Sarah straightened, setting down her clipboard with deliberate care. "Of course, Master Chief. What does the team require?" Rodriguez stepped forward, consulting a tactical notepad. 3 Barrett M82A1 systems with Leupold scopes, match grade, ammunition, and bipod assemblies. The exercise begins at 0800 hours, so we need them field ready within the next 20 minutes. As Sarah moved to retrieve the requested equipment, she could not help but notice which specific rifles Rodriguez had selected from her inventory list. 2 of them were units she had flagged for potential maintenance issues, though nothing that would affect basic functionality. The third was rifle number 7439, the one showing unusual bolt wear. She hesitated for a moment, considering whether to mention her observations, but decided against revealing too much knowledge about weapon systems that were supposedly outside her expertise. The preparation process gave her an opportunity to observe Rodriguez more closely. Unlike many officers who delegated equipment handling to their subordinates, he personally inspected each rifle with the methodical attention of someone who understood that his life might depend on these weapons. His hands moved with practiced efficiency as he checked actions, verified scope mounts, and tested trigger mechanisms. Sarah found herself making mental notes about his technique, recognizing procedures that went beyond standard military training. "The coastal conditions are challenging today," Rodriguez commented as he examined the scope adjustments. "Marine layer is creating visibility issues, and the wind patterns are unpredictable. These qualifications are going to test everyone's limits." Sarah nodded, though she kept her response professionally neutral. "The weather reports indicate variable conditions throughout the morning. The fog should lift by 0900, but the thermal effects from the ocean might create mirage issues after 1,000 hours. Rodriguez paused in his inspection, glancing at her with mild surprise. "You follow meteorological conditions for shooting applications?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Realizing she had revealed more knowledge than appropriate for her cover role, Sarah quickly deflected. The supply depot receives daily briefings about environmental factors that might affect equipment performance. Humidity and temperature changes can impact sensitive optical systems. The explanation seemed to satisfy Rodriguez, who returned his attention to the rifles. Within 15 minutes, all 3 Barrett systems were ready for transport to the firing range. Sarah completed the requisition paperwork with efficient precision, maintaining the facade of bureaucratic thoroughness that had served her so well during her time at Camp Pendleton. As the SEAL team leader prepared to leave with the equipment, Sarah made a decision that would alter the trajectory of her carefully planned investigation. "Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez," she called out, causing him to turn back toward her. "Rifle 7439 has been showing some inconsistencies in its maintenance cycle. Nothing that affects basic function, but you might want to have your armorer check the bolt headspace before any precision shooting." Rodriguez studied her with renewed interest. "What kind of inconsistencies?" Sarah retrieved her official maintenance log, flipping to the relevant entries. "The rifle has been returned to depot 3 times in the past month, with reported accuracy problems. Each time, our technicians found minor issues that were corrected, but the pattern suggests either unusual wear or potential operator error during use." The SEAL commander examined the maintenance records with growing attention. These units were all checked out by the same team for training exercises. "Have you noticed similar patterns with other rifles?" 2 additional Barrett systems have shown comparable issues, all within the same time frame. The problems are subtle enough that they would not affect standard marksmanship, but they could impact precision shooting at extended ranges. Rodriguez exchanged a meaningful glance with Master Chief Brooks. "Mitchell, I want you to prepare a detailed report on these maintenance patterns. Include any recommendations for preventing future occurrences." Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. Her months of careful observation were finally yielding the opportunity she had been seeking. "I can have that report ready by this afternoon, sir." "Good. And Mitchell," Rodriguez paused at the doorway, "I want you to observe this morning's qualification exercise. Your insights about equipment performance might be valuable for understanding what we are dealing with." After the SEAL team leader departed with Master Chief Brooks, Sarah allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. 18 months of maintaining perfect cover had led to this invitation to observe the very type of training exercise where her father had excelled. More importantly, her analysis of the maintenance patterns was bringing her closer to understanding the equipment failures that might have contributed to Operation Blackwater's tragic conclusion. The walk to the firing range complex took Sarah through terrain that reminded her powerfully of her childhood training sessions with her father. The rolling hills covered in scrub brush and scattered oak trees provided natural windbreaks and elevation changes that created complex ballistic challenges. Colonel David Mitchell had taught her to read these environmental factors instinctively, to see the subtle signs that revealed wind direction changes and thermal effects that could deflect a bullet's path over extreme distances. The advanced marksmanship range at Camp Pendleton stretched across a natural amphitheater carved into the coastal mountains. Steel targets were positioned at distances ranging from 800 meters to over 4,000 meters, with the furthest targets barely visible even through high-powered spotting scopes. The facility represented some of the most challenging long-range shooting conditions available for military training, with environmental factors that could humble even the most skilled marksman. Sarah arrived at the observation area to find SEAL Team 7 already in position for their qualification exercise. Rodriguez had positioned his 6-man team, firing points spaced along the range. Each operator assigned specific targets at varying distances. The morning marine layer still clung to the valleys below, creating visibility challenges that would test every aspect of their training. Chief Petty Officer Jake Thompson, Rodriguez's second-in-command, was briefing the team on the day's requirements. Thompson carried himself with the solid confidence of a career naval special operator, his graying temples indicating years of experience in the most demanding environments. Sarah positioned herself at a discreet distance where she could observe, without interfering, her clipboard ready to document any equipment issues that might arise. The team's designated marksman, Petty Officer First Class Ryan Collins, drew immediate attention as he prepared for his portion of the qualification. Collins had earned the nickname Hawk for his exceptional eyesight and steady shooting, and his reputation within the SEAL community was formidable. He approached his Barrett rifle with the casual confidence of someone who rarely missed his intended target, performing his pre-shot routine with practiced efficiency. Sarah watched Collins's preparation with the trained eye her father had given, her noting subtle details that most observers would miss. His breathing pattern was slightly elevated, indicating either excitement or underlying tension. His grip on the rifle stock was marginally tighter than optimal for precision shooting. Most significantly, he was not fully accounting for the wind conditions that Sarah could read in the movement of grass and leaves throughout the range complex. The first target assignment was set at 1,800 meters, a distance that fell well within the effective range of the Barrett system under ideal conditions. Collins settled into his shooting position with textbook form, adjusting his scope and calculating his firing solution. The morning air carried the sound of his controlled breathing as he prepared to engage the target. The rifle's report echoed across the range with thunderous authority, but the impact point was noticeably off-center. Collins immediately began making scope adjustments, muttering about unexpected wind conditions. His second shot improved, but still failed to achieve the precision expected from an operator of his caliber. By his third attempt, frustration was beginning to show in his body language and verbal comments. "Damn coastal winds," Collins complained loudly enough for the observation area to hear. "These conditions are impossible to read consistently." Rodriguez approached his marksman with the patient demeanor of a leader who understood that challenging conditions separated competent shooters from exceptional ones. "Take your time, Hawk. The wind is variable, but it is not random. Find the pattern." Sarah found herself unconsciously analyzing the environmental factors that Collins was struggling to master. The marine layer was creating thermal gradients that caused the wind to shift direction every few minutes. The moisture content in the air was affecting bullet trajectory in ways that required constant recalculation. Most critically, the ranges. Position relative to the coastal bluffs created venturi effects that accelerated wind speed unpredictably. Collins's fourth shot missed the target entirely, striking the hillside beyond with a visible dust cloud. The failure drew uncomfortable glances from his teammates and prompted Rodriguez to call a brief halt to the exercise. The SEAL commander approached Collins for a quiet conversation that Sarah could not overhear, but the marksman's defensive posture suggested he was not accepting the coaching well. When the qualification resumed, Collins appeared even more tense than before. His breathing had become irregular, and his shooting position showed signs of muscular tension that would inevitably affect his accuracy. Sarah recognized the downward spiral that could trap even experienced shooters when external pressure combined with challenging conditions. The fifth shot was Collins's worst yet, missing not only the intended target, but also the large backing plate designed to catch errant rounds. The projectile disappeared somewhere into the scrub-covered hills beyond the range, prompting an immediate safety stand-down while range personnel confirmed the impact area was clear. During the safety pause, Sarah noticed Collins glancing repeatedly in her direction, his expression suggesting growing frustration with having his struggles observed by support personnel. She tried to maintain the neutral demeanor appropriate for her cover role, but her natural analytical tendencies made it difficult to avoid studying his technique for obvious corrections. Rodriguez called his team together for a brief conference, and Sarah could sense the tension within the group. SEAL qualification exercises were serious evaluations that could affect team assignments and deployment schedules. Collins's uncharacteristic performance was creating stress that extended beyond the individual marksman to the entire unit. When the exercise resumed, Rodriguez made an unexpected decision. Instead of allowing Collins additional attempts, he moved the team to a different qualification phase, effectively removing his struggling marksman from the precision shooting evaluation. The decision was tactful but unmistakable in its implications. Collins did not accept the change gracefully. As the team prepared to transition to their next training phase, he noticed Sarah making notes on her clipboard and interpreted her documentation as criticism of his performance. "Got something to say about my shooting, supply girl?" Collins called out, his voice carrying across the range with obvious irritation. The question stopped all activity on the firing line. Every member of SEAL Team 7 turned to observe the confrontation, while Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with unexpected attention. This was exactly the type of situation she had spent 18 months avoiding, but Collins's challenge left her with limited options for maintaining her cover. "No, sir," Sarah replied with careful neutrality. "I am just documenting equipment performance for my maintenance report." "Equipment performance?" Collins stepped away from his rifle, moving toward the observation area with obvious aggression. "Or are you taking notes on my technique like you think you know something about precision shooting?" Rodriguez intervened before the situation could escalate further. "Collins, stand down. She is here at my request to observe potential equipment issues." But Collins was beyond listening to his team leader's guidance. The frustration of his poor performance, combined with the embarrassment of failing in front of his teammates, had focused on Sarah as a convenient target for his anger. "I have been shooting these rifles for 8 years, Collins announced loudly. "I do not need some pencil-pushing contractor telling me what I am doing wrong." The confrontation had created exactly the type of attention Sarah had worked so hard to avoid, but Collins's continued aggression was making it impossible for her to simply retreat. She could see Rodriguez preparing to forcibly end the interaction, but something in the SEAL commander's expression suggested he was curious about how she would respond to the pressure. "Since you seem to think you understand precision shooting," Collins continued, his voice growing louder, "why do not you show us how it is supposed to be done?" The challenge hung in the coastal air like the morning mist, visible and unavoidable. Sarah felt the weight of 18 months of careful planning balanced against the opportunity Collins was inadvertently providing. Every person on the firing line was watching her response, waiting to see how a supply clerk would handle a direct confrontation with an elite naval special operator. Rodriguez stepped forward, clearly intending to end the confrontation before it could escalate further. "Collins, that is enough. Return to your equipment and prepare for the next phase." But Collins ignored his commander's direct order, his attention focused entirely on Sarah. "Come on, supply girl. You have been watching and taking notes like. You know something. Let us see what you have got." Sarah looked at the Barrett rifle Collins had been using, then at the distant targets that had frustrated his attempts. The 1,800-meter steel plate that had defeated him was clearly visible through the morning haze, challenging but well within the capabilities of both the weapon system and a properly trained operator. The wind conditions that Collins had blamed for his poor performance were complex, but readable to someone with the right background. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds, Sarah set down her clipboard and walked toward the rifle Collins had abandoned. The Barrett M82A1 felt familiar in Sarah's hands despite 18 months of pretending such weapons were foreign to her. The rifle's weight distribution, the texture of the stock, even the particular resistance of the bolt action brought back memories she had worked hard to suppress. She performed the safety check with movements that appeared deliberate but were actually automatic, muscle memory overriding conscious thought as she verified the weapon's condition. Collins watched her approach with a mixture of anticipation and skepticism, clearly expecting her to fumble with equipment that was supposedly outside her expertise. The other members of SEAL Team 7 had gathered at a respectful distance, their expressions ranging from curiosity to concern about the unusual situation developing on their firing line. Rodriguez maintained his position near the team, but made no move to intervene, his dark eyes studying Sarah's handling of the rifle with professional interest. The morning marine layer was beginning to lift, creating shift-in visibility conditions that added complexity to an already challenging shot. Sarah could see the 1,800-meter target that had frustrated Collins, a steel plate approximately 18 inches square that appeared deceptively small through the rifle's scope. The distance itself was not extraordinary for a Barrett system, but the environmental factors made it a legitimate test of marksmanship skill. As Sarah settled into a prone shooting position, she felt the familiar comfort of proper body alignment and natural point of aim. Her father had drilled these fundamentals into her consciousness until they became second nature, teaching her that precision shooting was as much about mental discipline as physical technique. The coastal wind carried the scent of sage and ocean, salt, reminding her of countless hours spent on similar terrain, learning to read environmental conditions. Master Chief Brooks had appeared at the range during Collins's confrontation, and now stood silently observing the unprecedented situation of a civilian contractor being challenged to demonstrate military marksmanship skills. His weathered face revealed nothing of his thoughts, but Sarah noticed his positioning, allowed him to clearly observe both her technique and the reactions of the SEAL team members. The Barrett's scope presented a crisp image of the target, but Sarah's attention focused equally on the environmental indicators visible throughout the range complex. Grass movement revealed wind direction changes, occurring every few minutes as thermal effects from the coastal bluffs created turbulence. The marine layer's retreat was causing temperature gradients that would affect bullet trajectory in subtle but measurable ways. Most critically, the wind speed was accelerating through natural channels in the terrain, creating conditions that required constant compensation. Sarah's breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that had been drilled into her since childhood. Her father had taught her that the pause between heartbeats was where precision lived, that moment of perfect stillness when external factors aligned with internal discipline. She could feel her pulse slowing as concentration narrowed her awareness to the essential elements of the shot. Collins had grown impatient with her methodical preparation. "Taking your time there, supply girl. This is not as easy as it looks. From the sidelines, is it? The taunt was clearly intended to rattle her concentration, a psychological tactic that might have worked against someone without extensive training. Sarah's response was to settle deeper into her shooting position, her body language radiating the calm focus that separated trained marksmen from casual shooters. The subtle shift in her demeanor was not lost on Rodriguez, who had begun studying her technique with increased attention. Through the scope, Sarah could see heat mirage beginning to form as the sun climbed higher in the coastal sky. The atmospheric distortion would make precise aiming more difficult, requiring her to compensate for optical effects that could throw off shot placement by several inches at extended range. She adjusted her point of aim slightly, accounting for the complex interaction of wind, temperature, and distance that determined bullet flight path. The trigger break was smooth and unexpected, occurring at the natural pause in her breathing. Cycle without conscious decision. The Barrett's massive recoil was absorbed perfectly by Sarah's stance, her body remaining motionless as the rifle discharged its powerful cartridge toward the distant target. The thunderous report echoed across the range complex, startling several team members who had not expected such professional technique from someone in a support role. For the 3 seconds required for the bullet to traverse 1,800 meters of increasingly complex air conditions, absolute silence reigned on the firing line. Sarah remained in position behind the scope, maintaining her sight picture to observe bullet impact and assess any necessary corrections for follow-up shots. Her breathing continued in the same controlled pattern, showing no signs of the tension that typically affected shooters attempting difficult shots under pressure. The metallic ring of bullet-striking steel carried clearly across the range, followed immediately by enthusiastic confirmation from the spotters positioned at various observation points. The impact had been centered on the target, achieving the type of precision that Collins had been struggling to accomplish throughout the morning qualification exercise. Sarah slowly lifted her head from the scope, her expression revealing neither surprise nor satisfaction at the successful shot. Collins stared at the distant target in disbelief, then at Sarah, then back at the target as if hoping the evidence would somehow change. The shot had been executed with a level of competence that exceeded what most people expected from experienced military marksmen, let alone from a civilian contractor whose job involved counting inventory rather than engaging targets. "Lucky shot," Collins muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. The precision of Sarah's technique had been too obvious to dismiss as chance, and his own struggles with the same target made such an explanation difficult to accept. Rodriguez approached the shooting position with deliberate steps, his professional interest now fully engaged. "Miss Mitchell, that was exceptional marksmanship. Where did you learn to handle precision rifles?" The question Sarah had been dreading for 18 months now demanded an immediate response. Her cover story included basic familiarity with firearms through civilian shooting sports, but nothing that would explain the level of skill she had just demonstrated. The careful construction of her false identity had never anticipated being forced to reveal competence that went far beyond her supposed background. "I have some experience with recreational shooting," Sarah replied carefully, hoping to deflect further inquiry while remaining technically truthful. "Long-range target shooting has been a hobby since I was young." The explanation was accurate, but insufficient to account for the professional technique Rodriguez had observed. Military marksmanship involved aspects of training that civilian recreational shooting rarely addressed, particularly the type of environmental compensation and body mechanics that Sarah had displayed unconsciously. Master Chief Brooks moved closer to the group, his expression suggesting he had noticed details that others might have missed. "That shooting position was textbook military precision, Mitchell. Your breathing control and trigger technique showed advanced training." Sarah felt the investigation focus tightening around her carefully constructed identity. Every response risked revealing more about her background than her mission could afford. But evasiveness would only increase suspicion among people trained to detect deception. My father was military, she admitted, choosing to reveal information that could be verified rather than risk exposure through obvious lies. He taught me proper shooting fundamentals when I was growing up. The admission created immediate interest among the SEAL team members who understood that military fathers often pass specialized skills to their children. Rodriguez's attention sharpened further as he processed this new information in the context of Sarah's demonstrated abilities. "What was your father's background?" Rodriguez asked with the casual tone that masked professional interrogation techniques. Sarah's hesitation was brief but noticeable to trained observers. "Special Forces. He served multiple deployments before he was killed in action." The statement was truthful in its essential elements while omitting critical details that would immediately identify her father's legendary status within the special operations community. Colonel David Mitchell's reputation as Shadow had been carefully suppressed after Operation Blackwater, but senior personnel might still recognize his name in connection with extraordinary marksmanship achievements. Collins had been following the conversation with growing irritation, his earlier challenge having backfired spectacularly. "So you learned to shoot from Daddy, big deal. Let us see if you can do it again when the pressure is really on." Before Rodriguez could intervene, Collins had begun adjusting the target distance markers, extending the range to 2,400 meters for a substantially more challenging shot. The new distance pushed beyond the comfortable effective range of most marksmen, entering territory where environmental factors became exponentially more difficult to compensate for accurately. "Collins, stand down," Rodriguez ordered. But his marksman was already positioning fresh targets at the extended range. "No, sir, I want to see if Supply Girl here can handle a real precision shot. Something that separates the weekend warriors from actual operators." The challenge represented exactly the type of attention Sarah's mission required her to avoid, but backing down now would raise different questions about her earlier success. She could see Rodriguez calculating the political implications of the situation while Master Chief Brooks observed with the patient attention of someone who suspected there was more to discover. Sarah studied the new target through her scope, automatically calculating the additional environmental factors that 2,400 meters would introduce. The marine layer had lifted enough to improve visibility, but the increased distance meant that wind conditions throughout the entire bullet flight path would affect accuracy. The morning sun was creating thermal effects that would intensify as temperature rose, requiring compensation for atmospheric distortion that could deflect the projectile by significant margins. The target itself appeared impossibly small at the extended range, barely visible even through high-powered optics. Sarah could see why Collins considered this a make-or-break test of her abilities. Success would prove her marksmanship was genuinely exceptional, while failure could be attributed to the inherent difficulty of the shot rather than any deficiency in her training. As Sarah prepared for the second shot, she noticed Rodriguez speaking quietly into his radio, apparently communicating with range control about the extended distance engagement. The conversation suggested he was taking the demonstration seriously enough to ensure proper safety protocols were followed for the increased range. The wind conditions had shifted slightly since her first shot, requiring Sarah to recalculate her compensation based on updated environmental readings. She could see dust movement at several points along the bullet's projected flight path, indicating variable wind conditions that would demand precise timing for optimal results. Her father's training had emphasized the importance of reading these natural indicators rather than relying solely on mechanical wind meters. Collins had positioned himself where he could observe both Sarah's technique and the target impact, clearly hoping to witness a failure that would restore his damaged reputation. The other team members maintained their distance, but were obviously interested in seeing whether Sarah's first success could be repeated under more challenging conditions. The shooting position felt natural, despite the months Sarah had spent avoiding such situations. Her body automatically adjusted to account for the Barrett's characteristics and the specific environmental conditions present at Camp Pendleton. The coastal setting reminded her powerfully of training sessions with her father at similar locations, where he had taught her to use ocean thermal effects and coastal wind patterns to enhance rather than hinder precision shooting. Through the scope, the distant target wavered slightly as heat mirage began affecting visibility. Sarah adjusted her aiming point to compensate for the atmospheric distortion, drawing on experience that went far beyond casual recreational shooting. The calculations required were complex enough that most military marksmen would struggle with them, let alone civilian contractors with limited training. Her breathing cycle settled into the familiar rhythm that preceded precision shots, each exhale bringing deeper focus and steadier body position. The Barrett's trigger felt familiar under her finger, its resistance and break characteristics matching muscle memory developed through thousands of repetitions during her formative years. The moment of truth approached as external conditions aligned with internal preparation. The second shot's report was even more impressive than the first, the Barrett's massive cartridge generating sufficient sound pressure to echo off distant hills with authority that commanded respect. Sarah maintained her position behind the scope, tracking the bullet's flight path through observation of atmospheric effects visible in her sight picture. The extended flight time created additional suspense as everyone waited for confirmation of impact. When the confirming ring reached the firing line, it carried the unmistakable sound of another centered hit on target. The precision required for consecutive hits at 2,400 meters exceeded what most people expected from professional military marksmen, establishing Sarah's competence at a level that demanded explanation rather than casual acceptance. Collins's reaction was immediate and explosive. "That is impossible. Nobody shoots that consistently at this range without years of specialized training." His outburst revealed frustration that went beyond professional embarrassment to genuine confusion about what he had witnessed. The level of marksmanship Sarah had demonstrated suggested background and training that conflicted dramatically with her ostensible role as a supply contractor. Rodriguez approached Sarah with obvious respect, his earlier casual interest replaced by focused professional attention. "Miss Mitchell, I need to ask you some direct questions about your background." That level of precision shooting indicates training that goes well beyond recreational experience. Sarah felt her carefully maintained cover beginning to unravel under the weight of her own competence. The demonstration that was supposed to deflect Collins's challenge had instead created exactly the type of scrutiny her mission required her to avoid. Every response now carried the risk of either revealing information that would compromise her investigation or creating obvious inconsistencies that would intensify suspicion. Master Chief Brooks had moved to a position where he could observe both Sarah and Rodriguez, his expression suggesting he was prepared to intervene if the situation required official attention. The presence of senior enlisted leadership added another layer of complexity to an already delicate situation. "My father's training was quite comprehensive," Sarah replied, maintaining the partial truth strategy that had served her earlier. He believed in teaching proper fundamentals rather than casual shooting techniques. Rodriguez was clearly unsatisfied with the vague response. "What unit did your father serve with?" "The level of instruction you received suggests advanced military marksmanship training." The question pushed directly toward information Sarah could not reveal without compromising her entire investigation. Colonel David Mitchell's service record would immediately identify him as one of the military's most legendary precision shooters, making Sarah's presence at Camp Pendleton appear far from coincidental. Before she could formulate a response that balanced truth with operational security, Collins interrupted with another challenge that escalated the situation beyond what anyone had anticipated. "I do not care who taught her," Collins announced loudly. "I want to see her try a shot that actually matters." something at the edge of what this rifle can do. He was already moving toward the range control station, apparently intending to set up targets at distances that would test the absolute limits of the Barrett system's capability. Rodriguez called after him to halt, but Collins was beyond listening to orders that conflicted with his need to restore his damaged pride. Sarah watched the situation spiraling beyond her control while calculating options that were all problematic. Accepting another challenge would risk revealing capabilities that would immediately expose her true identity. Declining would raise questions about why someone with her demonstrated skill would avoid proving her abilities. Either choice threatened the investigation she had spent 18 months developing. The morning sun had burned away most of the marine layer, revealing the full extent of Camp Pendleton's mountainous terrain and the distant targets, positioned at ranges that challenged even the most advanced military marksmanship. Sarah could see Collins working with range personnel to establish targets at distances that would satisfy his need for a definitive test of her abilities. Rodriguez approached her with an expression that combined professional curiosity with growing concern about the situation developing on his range. "Miss Mitchell, I think we need to have a more detailed conversation about your background and your presence here today." The words carried implications that went far beyond casual inquiry. Sarah recognized the tone of someone who suspected that official investigation might be required to resolve questions that casual conversation could not answer. Her mission was approaching a decision point that would determine whether 18 months of careful preparation would yield the breakthrough she needed or the exposure that would end her quest for truth about her father's fate. Collins returned from the range control station with an expression of grim satisfaction, having arranged what he clearly believed would be the definitive test of Sarah's abilities. The target he had requested was positioned at 3,200 meters, a distance that pushed beyond the effective range where most military marksmen could expect consistent results. The steel plate was barely visible even through high-powered spotting scopes, appearing as little more than a dark speck against the hillside backdrop. Rodriguez studied the proposed shot with obvious concern, recognizing that Collins was demanding a demonstration that bordered on the impossible. The distance itself was extreme, but the environmental conditions at Camp Pendleton added layers of complexity that made success highly improbable even for exceptional marksmen. The coastal thermal effects, variable wind patterns, and atmospheric distortion would combine to create a challenge that few people could meet consistently. "Collins, this is beyond reasonable demonstration," Rodriguez stated firmly. 3,000 meters exceeds what we would expect from any operator under these conditions. Collins was unmoved by his commander's objection. "Sir, she has been taking notes on our performance like she knows something we do not. If she wants to critique professional operators, she should be able to back it up with performance that justifies her observations." The logic was flawed, but emotionally compelling to someone whose professional pride had been damaged by public failure. Collins's frustration had focused entirely on Sarah as the cause of his embarrassment, making rational assessment of the situation impossible. He needed vindication through her failure more than he needed to maintain unit cohesion or follow proper protocols. Sarah examined the distant target through her scope, automatically calculating the ballistic challenges that 3,200 meters would present. The bullet's flight time would exceed 4 seconds, during which atmospheric conditions could change significantly. Wind effects would be magnified exponentially, requiring compensation that pushed beyond normal calculation methods into estimation based on experience and intuition. Master Chief Brooks had positioned himself where he could observe both the technical aspects of the shot and the interpersonal dynamics developing within the team. His weathered face revealed growing concern about the situation's trajectory, particularly Collins's increasingly insubordinate behavior toward Rodriguez's attempts at command intervention. The morning sun had reached sufficient intensity to create substantial heat mirage throughout the target area, making precise aiming extremely difficult. Sarah could see atmospheric distortion wavering through her scope, creating optical effects that would require constant adjustment as thermal conditions continued changing. The challenge was becoming less about marksmanship skill and more about environmental prediction and compensation. "Miss Mitchell," Rodriguez addressed her directly, "you are under no obligation to attempt this shot. The distance and conditions make success extremely unlikely for anyone." The offer provided Sarah with a graceful exit from the escalating situation, but accepting it would leave questions about her earlier demonstrations unanswered. Rodriguez's tone suggested he was beginning to suspect that her presence at Camp Pendleton was not as coincidental as her official assignment indicated. Sarah's decision surprised everyone present, including herself. "I will take the shot." The statement was delivered with quiet confidence that contrasted sharply with the extreme difficulty of what she was proposing to attempt. Collins's expression shifted from anticipation to uncertainty, as he realized that his challenge might not produce the failure he expected. As Sarah settled into her shooting position for the third time that morning, she felt muscle memory overriding conscious thought in ways that 18 months of suppressed identity could not prevent. Her father's training had included shots at distances that exceeded what most military units considered practical, preparing her for exactly the type of challenge Collins had inadvertently created. The Barrett felt increasingly familiar in her hands as she adjusted the scope for the extreme range engagement. The rifle's characteristics had become second nature during her childhood training, when Colonel David Mitchell had taught her to push the boundaries of what precision shooting could accomplish. The current situation was recreating conditions similar to those formative sessions, triggering responses that she had worked hard to suppress. Rodriguez had moved to a position where he could observe both Sarah's technique and communicate with spotters positioned throughout the range complex. His radio communications indicated that he was taking the demonstration seriously enough to ensure that all safety protocols were properly followed, despite his obvious reservations about the shot's difficulty. Collins positioned himself at the primary spotting scope, clearly hoping to witness the failure that would validate his earlier poor performance. His need for vindication had overcome his military professionalism, creating a situation that was testing unit cohesion as much as individual marksmanship ability. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target wavering substantially due to heat mirage and atmospheric distortion. The optical effects were severe enough that precise aiming would require timing the shot to coincide with moments of relative atmospheric stability. Her father had taught her to read these conditions as natural phenomena rather than obstacles, using environmental factors to enhance rather than hinder precision. The wind conditions throughout the 3,200-meter flight path were complex beyond normal calculation methods. Sarah could observe grass movement and dust patterns at multiple points between the firing line and target, indicating wind direction changes that occurred in layers throughout the bullet's trajectory. Compensating accurately would require integrating multiple environmental readings into a single aiming solution. Her breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that had become automatic during precision shooting, each cycle bringing deeper focus and steadier body position. The external pressure of observation and challenge faded into background awareness as concentration narrowed to the essential elements of an extremely difficult shot. Rodriguez's radio communications revealed that spotters throughout the range were reporting ready status, indicating that the shot had attracted official attention from range control personnel. The demonstration had evolved beyond a simple challenge between team members into an event that multiple people were monitoring for both safety and performance assessment purposes. Sarah's final preparation included calculations that went beyond standard military training to incorporate environmental factors that her father had taught her to recognize and utilize. The coastal setting provided thermal effects and wind patterns that could be predicted based on time of day, season, and geographic features. This additional knowledge gave her advantages that Collins could not have anticipated when he issued his challenge. The trigger break occurred at the optimal moment in her breathing cycle, coinciding with atmospheric conditions that provided the best possible opportunity for success. The Barrett's recoil was absorbed perfectly by Sarah's stance, her body remaining motionless as the powerful cartridge began its 4-second journey toward the distant target. The silence following the shot was more profound than before, with every person on the range understanding that they were witnessing an attempt at something genuinely extraordinary. Sarah remained in position behind the scope, maintaining her sight picture to observe any atmospheric effects that might indicate bullet passage through the air between firing line and target. Rodriguez monitored radio communications from spotters positioned at various points along the bullet's flight path, their reports indicating that atmospheric conditions remained stable throughout the projectile's travel time. The extended flight duration created suspense that affected everyone present, regardless of their personal investment in the outcome. When the metallic ring of impact reached the firing line after what seemed like an eternity, it carried confirmation that Sarah had achieved something remarkable. The sound was unmistakably that of bullets striking steel dead center, indicating precision that exceeded what most people considered possible under the challenging conditions present at Camp Pendleton. Collins's reaction was immediate and intense. "That is absolutely impossible. Nobody makes that shot consistently without specialized training that takes years to develop." His outburst revealed complete abandonment of military bearing in favor of emotional response to something that challenged his understanding of marksmanship capabilities. The demonstration had moved beyond personal embarrassment into territory that questioned his fundamental assumptions about shooting skills and training. Rodriguez approached Sarah with obvious respect mixed with professional concern. "Miss Mitchell, that level of precision shooting indicates background that goes far beyond recreational experience or casual military training. I need you to be completely honest about your qualifications and your presence here." The direct question pushed Sarah toward revelations that could compromise her investigation, but evasiveness was no longer possible given the capabilities she had demonstrated. Rodriguez's tone indicated that he suspected official inquiry might be necessary to resolve questions about her identity and background. Master Chief Brooks moved closer to the group, his expression suggesting that he was prepared to take control of the situation if it required senior enlisted intervention. The presence of multiple leadership levels indicated that Sarah's demonstration had attracted attention that extended beyond team-level curiosity. "My father was Colonel David Mitchell," Sarah stated, choosing to reveal information that would inevitably be discovered through official investigation. His call sign was Shadow. The admission created immediate recognition among the senior personnel present. Colonel Mitchell's reputation within the special operations community was legendary, particularly his achievements in precision shooting that had established records unlikely to be exceeded. Rodriguez's expression shifted to understanding as he processed the implications of Sarah's parentage. "Shadow's daughter," Rodriguez said quietly, his voice carrying the respect that Colonel Mitchell's name commanded within military circles. "That explains the capabilities you have demonstrated today." Collins looked confused by the references to someone he apparently did not recognize, but Master Chief Brooks's reaction indicated that he understood the significance of Sarah's revelation. The Master Chief's weathered face showed surprise, mixed with concern about the implications of her presence at Camp Pendleton. "Colonel Mitchell was reported killed in action during Operation Blackwater," Brooks stated carefully. "His records were classified after the mission failure." Sarah's jaw tightened at the reference to her father's supposed death and the official narrative that had destroyed his reputation. "The operation was compromised before it began. My father was used as a scapegoat for failures that were not his responsibility." The statement carried implications that went beyond family loyalty to suggest knowledge of classified military operations. Rodriguez exchanged meaningful glances with Master Chief Brooks as they processed information that raised questions about Sarah's access to sensitive details. "What kind of evidence do you have to support that claim?" Rodriguez asked, his tone indicating professional interest rather than casual curiosity. Sarah hesitated before responding, recognizing that her answer would determine whether the conversation remained unofficial or evolved into formal investigation. "I have been tracking equipment failures and personnel assignments that suggest systematic sabotage of precision operations." The admission revealed that her presence at Camp Pendleton was part of a deliberate investigation rather than coincidental assignment. Rodriguez's expression showed understanding that Sarah's supply depot position had been chosen to provide access to maintenance records and equipment performance data. Collins had been following the conversation with growing confusion, clearly struggling to understand references to operations and personnel that were outside his knowledge base. "Sir, who is Colonel Mitchell? Why is everyone acting like his name means something?" Master Chief Brooks answered the question with obvious respect for the subject. Shadow Mitchell held the long-range elimination record for special operations. His confirmed kills at extreme distances established standards that no one has matched since Operation Blackwater. The explanation provided context for Sarah's demonstrated abilities, while revealing why her presence attracted such serious attention from senior personnel. Collins's expression showed dawning understanding of the caliber of training that had produced the marksmanship he had witnessed. Rodriguez pulled out his radio and spoke quietly with range control, apparently arranging for privacy that would allow more detailed discussion of sensitive subjects. His conversation included references to clearing the range and establishing security protocols appropriate for classified information. "Miss Mitchell," Rodriguez addressed her formally, "I think we need to continue this conversation in a more secure environment. The subjects you have raised require official attention." Sarah understood that her investigation had reached a critical decision point. Accepting Rodriguez's invitation would mean revealing information that could compromise operational security, but declining would raise suspicions that could end her access to the facilities and personnel she needed to investigate. Before she could respond, Rodriguez's radio crackled with an urgent communication from base security. The message was coded, but clearly indicated that someone with significant authority was requesting immediate information about the activities occurring on the long-range marksmanship facility. "Sir," the radio operator's voice carried obvious tension, "Colonel Harrison from Base Intelligence is requesting immediate briefing on current range activities. He has specific interest in personnel demonstrating exceptional marksmanship capabilities." Rodriguez's expression showed concern. At the mention of intelligence involvement in what had begun as routine training exercise, the rapid escalation to command attention suggested that Sarah's demonstration had triggered automated monitoring systems designed to identify unusual activities. Master Chief Brooks moved closer to Rodriguez for a private conversation that Sarah could not overhear, but their body language indicated serious discussion about proper protocols for handling the developing situation. The involvement of intelligence personnel added complexity that went beyond normal range safety or training concerns. Sarah felt the investigation she had spent 18 months developing approaching a crossroads that would determine its future direction. The attention her marksmanship had attracted was exactly what her mission required her to avoid, but the opportunity to access senior personnel who might have information about Operation Blackwater was equally valuable. Collins had stepped back from the group, clearly recognizing that the situation had evolved beyond his ability to influence or understand. His challenge had inadvertently created circumstances that were testing the boundaries of official protocols and security procedures. The morning sun had reached full intensity, burning away the last remnants of marine layer and revealing the complete scope of Camp Pendleton's mountainous terrain. The clarity of the atmosphere made the distant target clearly visible, emphasizing the extraordinary nature of the shot Sarah had accomplished while senior personnel processed the implications of her presence. Rodriguez made a decision that would affect everyone present. We are going to move this discussion to a secure facility where we can address the questions that have been raised. Miss Mitchell, you will accompany Master Chief Brooks and myself for a comprehensive debriefing. The directive was professionally delivered, but carried the unmistakable authority of someone who was taking control of a situation that had exceeded normal parameters. Sarah recognized that her choice to reveal her marksmanship abilities had initiated a sequence of events that could no longer be controlled through careful misdirection. As the group prepared to leave the firing range, Sarah took a final look at the distant target that had provided the breakthrough her investigation needed. The 3,200-meter shot that had seemed impossible to Collins was actually well within the Wanbo capabilities her father had developed, but demonstrating those abilities had exposed her presence to exactly the type of official attention that could either advance or terminate her mission. The walk back toward the base facilities provided time for Sarah to consider the implications of the next phase of her investigation. 18 months of careful preparation had led to this moment of decision when maintaining her cover was no longer possible, and revealing her true purpose carried risks that extended far beyond personal consequences. Rodriguez and Master Chief Brooks flanked her during the movement, their positioning suggesting both escort and protection as they approached facilities where senior personnel waited for explanations about the morning's extraordinary events. The demonstration that had begun as Collins's attempt to embarrass a supply contractor had evolved into something that commanded attention from the highest levels of base authority. Behind them, Collins gathered his equipment with obvious confusion about what had transpired and his role in initiating events that had quickly moved beyond his understanding or control. The challenge he had issued as an expression of frustrated pride had inadvertently created the opportunity Sarah needed to advance her investigation, though not in ways that anyone could have anticipated when the morning's qualification exercise began. The secure briefing room in Building 12 felt sterile and unwelcoming compared to the open spaces of the firing range. But Sarah understood that the conversation about to unfold required privacy that only classified facilities could provide. Colonel Harrison from Base Intelligence had arrived within minutes of Rodriguez's radio call, his presence indicating that her demonstration had triggered monitoring systems designed to identify unusual activities requiring official attention. Harrison carried himself with the measured authority of someone accustomed to dealing with sensitive information and complex security situations. His gray hair and lined face suggested extensive experience in military intelligence operations, while his direct gaze indicated someone who specialized in extracting truth from reluctant sources. The speed of his response to reports about Sarah's marksmanship suggested that her presence at Camp Pendleton had been under observation longer than she had realized. Rodriguez and Master Chief Brooks flanked Sarah at the conference table, their positioning suggesting both support and security as the formal debriefing began. The room's acoustic treatment and electronic countermeasures indicated that conversations here were protected from external monitoring, allowing discussion of classified subjects that could not be addressed in normal facilities. Miss Mitchell, Harrison began without preliminary courtesies. Your demonstration this morning has raised questions that require immediate clarification. Precision shooting at the level you displayed indicates training that goes far beyond civilian recreational experience. Sarah had spent the walk from the range preparing for this conversation, recognizing that her investigation had reached a point where partial truths would no longer suffice. The capabilities she had revealed made denying her background impossible, but full disclosure carried risks that extended beyond personal consequences to operational security. Colonel, my presence here is part of an authorized investigation into equipment failures that may have contributed to operational casualties, Sarah replied, choosing to frame her activities in terms that emphasized official purpose rather than personal motivation. Harrison's expression showed interest rather than surprise at her claim of authorized status. What organization authorized this investigation, and why was base security not informed of your presence? The question pushed directly toward information that Sarah could not reveal without compromising other aspects of her mission. The investigation she had been conducting was entirely personal, developed through her own resources and contacts rather than official channels. Claiming official authorization was a calculated risk designed to provide legitimacy for her activities. Rodriguez intervened before Sarah could respond to Harrison's question. "Sir, she has provided information about systematic equipment failures that correlate with operational difficulties my team has experienced. The maintenance patterns she identified suggest potential sabotage of precision weapon systems." The comment shifted attention toward the technical aspects of Sarah's investigation, rather than questions about her authorization or background. Rodriguez's support suggested that he recognized value in the information she had developed, regardless of concerns about her methods or identity. Master Chief Brooks contributed additional context that supported Sarah's position. "Colonel, the maintenance discrepancies she documented match patterns we have observed, but had not previously correlated across multiple units. Her analysis reveals systematic problems that deserve investigation." Harrison studied the maintenance reports that Sarah had compiled during her 18 months at various military installations. The documentation was comprehensive and professionally prepared, showing analysis that went beyond casual observation to detailed technical assessment of equipment performance patterns. These reports indicate access to maintenance records from multiple installations over an extended period, Harrison observed. "How did you obtain this information without triggering security protocols?" Sarah had anticipated the question and prepared a response that balanced operational necessity with security concerns. "I have been working with various supply and maintenance organizations throughout the region. The patterns only became apparent when data from multiple sources was integrated and analyzed systematically. The explanation was technically accurate, while omitting details about her deliberate positioning at installations where she could access records related to precision weapon systems." Harrison's expression suggested he suspected there was more to her activities than she was revealing, but the quality of her analysis made dismissing her findings difficult. Rodriguez pulled out his tablet and displayed the morning shooting results, including precise measurements of Sarah's target impacts. "Sir, her marksmanship capabilities are consistent with advanced military training. The shots she made this morning would challenge our best operators under ideal conditions. The ballistic data provided objective evidence of capabilities that exceeded what casual training could produce." Harrison studied the measurements with obvious professional interest, recognizing that the precision Sarah had demonstrated required extensive specialized instruction. "Your father was Colonel David Mitchell," Harrison stated, making clear that her earlier revelation had been processed through official channels. His service record indicates exceptional marksmanship training and operational experience before Operation Blackwater. Sarah felt relief that her parentage was now officially acknowledged, allowing discussion of subjects that had been carefully avoided during her undercover investigation. "Yes, sir. My father trained me extensively in precision shooting techniques from an early age." Harrison's expression softened slightly at the mention of her father's training role. Colonel Mitchell's reputation within the special operations community was exemplary before the Blackwater incident. His training methods produced results that established new standards for long-range marksmanship. The respectful tone encouraged Sarah to reveal more about her motivation for investigating equipment failures. "Sir, I believe the equipment problems I have documented are connected to the operational failures that destroyed my father's reputation. The pattern suggests systematic sabotage rather than random maintenance issues." Rodriguez leaned forward with increased attention. "Are you suggesting that precision weapons were deliberately compromised to cause mission failures?" Sarah nodded, while pulling additional documentation from her folder. The maintenance records show specific patterns of failure that occur just before critical operations. Components that should last thousands of rounds are failing after minimal use, always in ways that affect accuracy rather than basic function. Master Chief Brooks examined the failure analysis with growing concern. These patterns would be almost impossible to detect without access to records from multiple installations. Individual units would see isolated incidents rather than systematic problems. Harrison studied the documentation with obvious professional interest, recognizing analysis that went beyond casual observation to detailed technical investigation. Miss Mitchell, this level of investigation requires resources and access that suggest coordination with official agencies. Who has been supporting your activities? The question pushed toward information that Sarah could not provide without, revealing the informal network of military personnel who had assisted her investigation. Many of her sources were people who had served with her father and retained loyalty to his memory, despite official narratives about Operation Blackwater. Sir, I have received assistance from personnel who served with my father and believe he was wrongfully blamed for operational failures, Sarah replied carefully. The investigation has been conducted through personal initiative rather than official channels. Rodriguez's radio crackled with an urgent communication that interrupted the debriefing. The message was coded, but clearly indicated that significant developments were occurring elsewhere on the base that required immediate attention from senior personnel. Sir, the radio operator's voice carried obvious tension. We have confirmation of hostile activity in Sector 7. Teams are being deployed for immediate response. Harrison's expression showed concern at the timing of operational activity, coinciding with revelations about equipment sabotage. What type of hostile activity? Are we looking at external threats or internal security issues? The radio response was immediate and troubling. Sir, preliminary reports indicate coordinated attacks on precision weapon storage facilities. Multiple installations are reporting simultaneous security breaches. Sarah felt her investigation suddenly acquiring urgent operational relevance. The patterns she had been tracking for 18 months were apparently connected to active threats against military installations. Her analysis of equipment failures had inadvertently identified a broader conspiracy that was still operational. Rodriguez stood immediately, recognizing that his team might be required for rapid deployment to address the security threats. Colonel, do you want SEAL Team 7 to prepare for immediate response? Harrison was already coordinating with base security through his radio, arranging for enhanced protection of critical facilities while assessment of the threat continued. Negative for now, but have your team ready for rapid deployment if the situation escalates. Sarah realized that her investigation had reached a critical moment when theory was becoming reality. The equipment sabotage she had been tracking was apparently part of a larger operation designed to compromise military readiness at multiple installations simultaneously. Colonel Harrison, Sarah said urgently, the maintenance patterns I documented show that precision weapons at 3 other installations have been systematically compromised. If those facilities are being targeted, the attackers already know which equipment will fail when defenders attempt to respond. The information caused immediate concern among the senior personnel present. Harrison began coordinating with his intelligence staff to correlate Sarah's analysis with current threat assessments, recognizing that her investigation might provide critical insight into enemy capabilities and intentions. Rodriguez's team was being placed on immediate standby for deployment to assist with security responses at threatened installations. The SEAL commander's expression showed understanding that the morning's marksmanship demonstration had accidentally revealed information that was now operationally critical. Master Chief Brooks had begun reviewing Sarah's documentation with renewed urgency, looking for patterns that might predict which installations would be targeted next. Miss Mitchell, based on your analysis, which facilities are most vulnerable to the type of coordinated attack we are seeing? Sarah pulled out her tablet and displayed a map showing installations where she had documented the most severe equipment problems. These 3 locations have shown the most systematic failures. If the attackers follow the pattern I have been tracking, these would be logical targets for follow-up operations. Harrison immediately began coordinating with those installations to enhance their security posture and inspect their precision weapons for signs of sabotage. Sarah's investigation was providing intelligence that could prevent additional attacks and protect personnel who might otherwise be caught unprepared. The radio communications revealed that the initial attacks had been repelled, but not before significant damage to weapons storage facilities and precision equipment. The coordination and timing of the attack suggested advanced knowledge of security procedures and equipment locations that could only have come from extensive reconnaissance or inside information. "Sir," Rodriguez addressed Harrison with obvious concern, "the level of coordination these attacks required suggests long-term planning and detailed intelligence about our facilities. This is not opportunistic terrorism, but systematic operation by sophisticated adversaries." Sarah felt vindication for the investigation she had been conducting, despite official discouragement and personal risks. The equipment failures she had been tracking were apparently reconnaissance activities designed to identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited during coordinated attacks. Harrison turned his attention back to Sarah with renewed respect for the investigation she had been conducting. "Miss Mitchell, your analysis appears to have identified a significant threat that our normal security protocols failed to detect. I need you to provide comprehensive briefing on everything you have discovered." The request represented exactly the opportunity Sarah had been seeking for 18 months. Official recognition of her investigation would provide access to resources and information that could finally reveal the full scope of the conspiracy that had destroyed her father's reputation. "Sir, I have documented evidence suggesting that Operation Blackwater was compromised by the same organization responsible for today's attacks. The equipment failures that caused that mission's failure follow the same patterns I have been tracking at current installations." Rodriguez's expression showed understanding of the implications. "Are you saying that the same group that sabotaged your father's operation has been systematically compromising our precision weapons for months or years?" Sarah nodded while retrieving additional files from her investigation. "The evidence suggests a long-term campaign designed to degrade our precision engagement capabilities while gathering intelligence for coordinated attacks like we saw today." Master Chief Brooks examined the timeline Sarah had developed, noting correlations between equipment failures and subsequent operational difficulties that extended back several years. This level of systematic sabotage would require inside knowledge of our maintenance procedures and security protocols. Harrison had begun coordinating with higher headquarters to report the developing situation and request additional resources for comprehensive investigation. Sarah's analysis was providing insight into threats that had apparently been operating undetected for extended periods. The radio brought updates indicating that security sweeps at other installations were discovering evidence of sabotage similar to what Sarah had documented. Her investigation was being validated by discoveries that confirmed the systematic nature of the threat she had identified. Rodriguez approached Sarah with obvious respect for the investigation she had conducted under extremely difficult circumstances. "Miss Mitchell, your father would be proud of what you have accomplished. You have potentially saved lives and prevented significant damage to national security." The acknowledgement carried personal meaning that went beyond professional recognition. Sarah felt that her 18-month quest to clear her father's name had finally achieved success while contributing to current operational security. Colonel Harrison concluded his coordination activities and returned attention to the immediate situation. "Miss Mitchell, I am authorizing full access to the resources you need to complete your investigation. The information you have developed is critical to our response to this threat." Sarah felt the weight of 18 months of careful investigation finally receiving the official support it deserved. The breakthrough she had been seeking had come through circumstances she could never have anticipated, but the opportunity to complete her mission was finally available. The secure briefing room had become the center of coordinated response to threats that Sarah's investigation had helped identify and understand. Her patient analysis of equipment failures had revealed patterns that enabled effective response to coordinated attacks that might otherwise have succeeded. As senior personnel coordinated enhanced security measures and investigation of the sabotage network, Sarah reflected on the morning's events that had transformed her from undercover investigator to recognized intelligence asset. The impossible shot that Collins had demanded as proof of her abilities had inadvertently provided the credibility needed to gain official attention for her findings. Rodriguez's SEAL team was being briefed for potential deployment to installations where Sarah's analysis indicated the highest probability of follow-up attacks. The precision marksmanship that had revealed her identity was now contributing directly to operational planning designed to protect critical facilities and personnel. Master Chief Brooks approached Sarah with additional documentation that supported her analysis while providing context for the broader security implications. Miss Mitchell, your investigation has revealed threats that our normal intelligence gathering failed to identify. The methodology you developed should become standard procedure for identifying systematic sabotage. The recognition represented validation not only of Sarah's investigation, but also of the training and analytical skills her father had instilled during their years together. Colonel David Mitchell's legacy was being honored through his daughter's contribution to national security, finally receiving the acknowledgement that Operation Blackwater had denied him. Harrison concluded the briefing with arrangements for ongoing coordination between Sarah's investigation and official intelligence resources. The conspiracy she had been tracking alone was now the subject of comprehensive, official investigation with resources that could finally reveal its full scope and eliminate the threat it represented. As the immediate crisis response continued, Sarah realized that her 18-month quest had achieved far more than clearing her father's name. The investigation had contributed to protecting current operations and personnel, while establishing her own reputation as a skilled analyst and investigator within the military intelligence community. The morning that had begun with routine inventory checks had concluded with Sarah's transformation from undercover contractor to recognized intelligence professional. The impossible shot that had exposed her identity had also provided the credibility needed to gain official support for completing the mission that had driven her since her father's death. 6 months after the coordinated attacks on military installations were thwarted, Sarah Mitchell found herself standing in the Pentagon briefing room where her father's service record was being officially amended. The classified hearing had brought together senior officials from multiple agencies who had reviewed the comprehensive evidence that vindicated Colonel David "Shadow" Mitchell and exposed the conspiracy that had destroyed his reputation during Operation Blackwater. Admiral Rebecca Chun, the senior officer presiding over the proceedings, held the folder containing the final investigative report that Sarah's work had made possible. The document represented the culmination of an investigation that had expanded far beyond equipment sabotage to reveal a sophisticated network of foreign operatives who had infiltrated military support systems over several years. Sarah's patient analysis of maintenance patterns had provided the initial breakthrough that unraveled an espionage operation of unprecedented scope and duration. Miss Mitchell, Admiral Chun addressed her with the respect that her contributions had earned throughout the intelligence community. Your investigation has prevented significant damage to national security while exposing threats that our conventional security measures failed to detect. More importantly, your work has restored the reputation of a genuine American hero who was wrongfully maligned. The recognition carried profound personal meaning for Sarah, representing the vindication she had sought since learning of her father's supposed betrayal 5 years earlier. The official acknowledgement that Colonel Mitchell had been the victim of enemy action rather than the perpetrator of treason would ensure that his legacy reflected his actual service to the nation rather than the false narrative created by sophisticated deception operations. General Marcus Holloway, who had commanded special operations during Colonel Mitchell's era, participated in the hearing through secure video link from overseas assignment. His weathered face showed emotion as he addressed the assembly about Sarah's father's true contributions to national security. "Shadow Mitchell was the finest precision marksman I ever commanded," General Holloway stated with obvious pride. His elimination of high-value targets saved countless American lives and disrupted enemy operations throughout 2 theaters of conflict. The suggestion that he betrayed his country was always inconsistent with everything I knew about his character and commitment. Sarah felt tears threatening as she listened to testimony that restored her father's honor while providing context for achievements that had been classified beyond public recognition. The hearing was revealing details about Colonel Mitchell's service that even Sarah had not known, including operations where his exceptional marksmanship had changed the course of critical missions. Agent Diana Cross, who had coordinated the expanded investigation into the sabotage network, presented evidence showing how foreign operatives had systematically compromised multiple military systems while gathering intelligence for coordinated attacks. The scope of the conspiracy extended far beyond equipment failures to include personnel records manipulation, communication intercepts, and operational planning infiltration. The network that targeted Colonel Mitchell during Operation Blackwater had been planning that operation for months, Agent Cross explained to the assembly. They identified him as a critical threat to their strategic objectives and developed an elaborate deception to eliminate his effectiveness while discrediting American Special Operations capabilities. The detailed explanation provided Sarah with understanding of how her father had become the target of such sophisticated manipulation. His reputation and skills had made him a priority for elimination by enemies who recognized that his capabilities posed serious threats to their operations. Throughout the region, Commander Rodriguez, who had been promoted following his role in exposing the current conspiracy, testified about Sarah's exceptional abilities and the courage she had shown in pursuing her investigation, despite official discouragement and personal risks. His testimony emphasized how her unique background and analytical skills had enabled discoveries that conventional intelligence methods had missed. "Miss Mitchell's precision shooting abilities initially attracted our attention," Rodriguez explained to the panel, but her analytical skills and investigative methodology proved far more valuable than her marksmanship. She developed techniques for identifying systematic sabotage that should become standard procedure throughout the military. The recognition of her investigative contributions meant as much to Sarah as the restoration of her father's reputation. The 18 months she had spent working in obscurity had finally produced results that justified the personal sacrifices and professional risks she had accepted to pursue the truth about Operation Blackwater. Master Chief Brooks, now serving as Senior Enlisted Advisor for Precision Weapon Systems, described how Sarah's analysis had led to discovery of sabotage at installations throughout the military. The network she had identified had been systematically degrading American precision engagement capabilities while preparing for coordinated attacks that could have caused catastrophic damage. The maintenance patterns Miss Mitchell documented revealed systematic compromise of our most critical weapon systems, Master Chief Brooks testified. Her work prevented attacks that could have resulted in significant casualties and operational failures at multiple installations. Admiral Chun reviewed the final recommendations that emerged from the comprehensive investigation Sarah's work had initiated. The changes included enhanced security protocols for precision weapons maintenance, improved monitoring systems for detecting systematic sabotage, and recognition programs for personnel who demonstrated exceptional analytical skills in identifying threats. "Miss Mitchell," Admiral Chun announced formally, "the Department of Defense is establishing the Colonel David Mitchell Award for Excellence in Threat Analysis, to be presented annually to personnel who demonstrate exceptional skill in identifying and countering systematic threats to national security. You will be the first recipient of this award." The honor represented more than personal recognition for Sarah's contributions. Creating an award in her father's name would ensure that his legacy inspired future generations of military personnel while encouraging the type of innovative thinking that had made Sarah's investigation successful. Sarah's voice was steady despite her emotions as she responded to the Admiral's announcement. "Admiral, I am deeply honored that my father's name will be associated with efforts to protect the personnel he devoted his life to serving. He always taught me that our greatest obligation is to those who serve alongside us." The hearing concluded with arrangements for Sarah's transition to a permanent position within military intelligence, where her unique skills and background would continue contributing to national security. Her transformation from supply contractor to recognized intelligence professional represented the type of career progression that rewarded exceptional performance and innovative thinking. As the senior officials departed, Commander Rodriguez approached Sarah with obvious pride in her achievements and gratitude for the role she had played in protecting his team and countless other military personnel. His respect for her abilities had grown throughout their association, evolving from initial surprise at her marksmanship to deep appreciation for her analytical and investigative skills. "Sarah," Rodriguez said, using her first name for the first time, "your father would be incredibly proud of what you have accomplished. You have not only cleared his name, but probably saved more lives than he ever did with his rifle." The comparison to her father's direct impact through precision shooting provided perspective on how Sarah's investigation had achieved strategic effects that exceeded even legendary marksmanship accomplishments. Her patient analysis and determination had prevented attacks that could have killed hundreds of military personnel while compromising critical national security operations. Agent Cross joined the conversation with additional information about the ongoing investigation into the foreign network that Sarah's work had exposed. The conspiracy had international dimensions that were still being unraveled, with connections to hostile intelligence services that had been operating against American interests for decades. "The network you identified has been systematically targeting our most capable personnel for elimination or discreditation," Agent Cross explained. "Your father was one of several exceptional operators who became victims of sophisticated psychological operations designed to destroy their effectiveness and credibility." Sarah felt satisfaction that her investigation had revealed patterns of enemy action that extended far beyond her father's case. The vindication of Colonel Mitchell's reputation was part of a larger effort to restore honor to military personnel who had been wrongfully maligned through enemy deception operations. Master Chief Brooks discussed opportunities for Sarah to contribute to training programs that would teach other personnel to recognize and counter systematic threats. Her investigative methodology was being developed into formal curricula that would improve military-wide capabilities for identifying foreign infiltration and sabotage. "Your approach to correlating maintenance data from multiple sources revealed vulnerabilities in our security systems that we never recognized," Master Chief Brooks explained. "Teaching others to think the way you do could prevent future compromises of our critical capabilities." The recognition that her analytical methods had broader applications beyond her specific investigation provided Sarah with additional satisfaction about her contributions to military effectiveness. The techniques she had developed through necessity were becoming institutional knowledge that would protect future operations and personnel. Admiral Chun had remained after the formal hearing to provide Sarah with additional context about her Father's classified achievements, and the impact his elimination had on subsequent military operations. The information revealed how Colonel Mitchell's death had created gaps in special operations, capabilities that had taken years to address through training replacement personnel. Your father's loss was felt throughout the special operations community. Admiral Chun explained privately. His unique combination of technical skill and tactical judgment made him irreplaceable in certain types of high-risk operations. The enemy understood this and specifically targeted him for elimination. Sarah appreciated learning details about her father's service that provided context for why he had become such a priority target for foreign operatives. Understanding the strategic significance of his capabilities helped explain the sophisticated effort that had been directed toward destroying his reputation and effectiveness. The afternoon sun was setting over the Potomac as Sarah left the Pentagon with official recognition of her contributions and formal vindication of her father's honor. The journey that had begun with her decision to investigate equipment failures had concluded with comprehensive exposure of threats that had been operating against American interests for years. The drive back to her temporary quarters in Washington provided time for reflection on how dramatically her life had changed since that morning at Camp Pendleton when Collins had challenged her to demonstrate shooting skills she had been hiding for 18 months. The impossible shot that had exposed her identity had ultimately led to opportunities she could never have anticipated when she began her solitary investigation. Sarah's secure phone rang with a call from Rodriguez, who was coordinating deployment. Preparations for operations that would continue dismantling the foreign network her investigation had revealed. The conspiracy extended to multiple countries and involved operatives who had been working against American interests for decades. Sarah, we have identified facilities in 3 different countries where this network has been operating, Rodriguez reported. The intelligence you developed is guiding operations that could eliminate threats we have been dealing with for years without understanding their source. The information provided additional validation for the investigation Sarah had conducted. Despite official skepticism and personal isolation, her patient analysis was contributing to strategic operations that would protect American personnel and interests throughout multiple regions where the foreign network had been operating. The conversation revealed that Sarah's new position would involve coordinating similar investigations at installations worldwide, applying the analytical techniques she had developed to identify and counter systematic threats in multiple operational environments. Her success had earned opportunities to contribute to national security at levels she had never imagined possible. As darkness fell over the capital, Sarah reflected on the legacy her father had left and the contribution she had made to honoring his memory while protecting current military personnel. The reputation that had been destroyed through enemy deception was now restored, while the investigation techniques she had developed would help prevent future personnel from suffering similar injustices. Her secure tablet displayed orders for her first official assignment as a military intelligence analyst, directing her to investigate potential equipment compromises at installations in the Pacific Theater. The mission would apply everything she had learned during her 18-month investigation, while providing opportunities to identify and counter threats that conventional security measures might miss. Sarah felt confidence that her unique background and hard-earned experience would enable continued contributions to military effectiveness and personnel protection. The combination of analytical skills, technical knowledge, and understanding of foreign deception methods had prepared her for challenges that traditional intelligence training might not address adequately. The apartment where Sarah was staying temporarily contained few personal possessions, reflecting the transient lifestyle she had maintained during her investigation. The single-framed photograph on her desk showed her with her father during one of their training sessions, both of them smiling after she had achieved a particularly difficult shot at extreme range. Looking at the photograph, Sarah remembered her father's words about the importance of persistence in pursuing objectives that others considered impossible. His training had prepared her not only for precision shooting, but also for the type of methodical investigation that had ultimately vindicated his reputation while contributing to national security. The secure communication system in her apartment chimed with a message from Admiral Chun, providing additional details about the Colonel David Mitchell Award and the ceremony where Sarah would receive the first presentation. The event would bring together military personnel from throughout the Special Operations community to honor both her father's legacy and her own contributions. Sarah understood that the ceremony would mark the conclusion of her quest to restore her father's honor while beginning a new phase of her career dedicated to protecting military personnel through innovative threat analysis. The impossible shot that had started everything had led to opportunities and recognition that exceeded anything she had imagined when she began her solitary investigation. The morning would bring briefings about her first official assignment, and introduction to resources that would support investigations far more comprehensive than anything she had been able to conduct alone. The transformation from undercover contractor to recognized intelligence professional represented vindication, not only of her father's training, but also of her own determination to pursue truth despite official discouragement. As Sarah prepared for sleep, she felt profound satisfaction about achieving justice for her father while contributing to protection of military personnel who served with the same dedication and courage that had defined Colonel David Mitchell's career. The legacy that had been maligned through enemy deception was now restored and would inspire future generations through the award created in his honor. The impossible had become possible through persistence, skill, and unwavering commitment to truth. Sarah's investigation had proven that patience and analytical rigor could overcome even sophisticated deception operations, while demonstrating that individual determination could achieve strategic effects when applied with proper methodology and unwavering purpose. Her father's reputation was restored, his legacy secured, and his daughter's contribution to national security established. Through investigation that had revealed and countered threats operating at the highest levels of sophistication. The shot that had seemed impossible that morning at Camp Pendleton had opened possibilities that neither Collins nor anyone else could have anticipated when the challenge was issued. 2 years had passed since Sarah Mitchell's investigation had exposed the international conspiracy that destroyed her father's reputation, and she now found herself preparing for the most significant mission of her career. The intelligence facility in Okinawa hummed with activity as teams from multiple agencies coordinated a complex operation designed to eliminate the remaining leadership of the foreign network that had targeted American special operations for decades. Sarah stood before a wall-mounted display showing satellite imagery of a compound nestled in the mountains of eastern Myanmar, where intercepted communications had revealed the location of Viktor Kozlov, the mastermind behind Operation Blackwater, and countless other attacks on American personnel. The man responsible for her father's death had finally been located after 2 years of patient investigation that had traced financial networks, communication patterns, and operational signatures across 4 continents. Colonel James Reeves, who now commanded the Joint Task Force responsible for high-value target elimination, briefed the assembled team on the unique challenges presented by Kozlov's fortress-like compound. The facility was positioned on a mountain ridge accessible only through narrow approaches that were heavily defended with automated weapon systems and electronic countermeasures designed to defeat conventional assault methods. Kozlov has spent years preparing this position, Colonel Reeves explained to the multinational team of specialists gathered for the operation. The compound is designed to withstand direct assault by substantial forces, with overlapping fields of fire that make conventional approaches impossible. Sarah studied the tactical display showing the compound's defensive arrangements, automatically calculating firing angles and range, considerations that had become second nature during her transition from analyst to operational planner. Her unique combination of investigative skills and precision shooting capabilities had earned her a position on the most sensitive missions, targeting threats she had helped identify. The briefing revealed that Kozlov's location had been determined. Through analysis of the maintenance records Sarah had originally investigated at Camp Pendleton, the equipment sabotage patterns she had identified had led investigators to financial networks that funded the foreign operations, eventually revealing communication signatures that pinpointed the compound where Kozlov directed his global network. Agent Maria Santos from the CIA's Counterintelligence Division presented evidence showing how Kozlov's organization had systematically targeted American Special Operations personnel for elimination or discreditation over nearly a decade. Colonel Mitchell had been one of dozens of exceptional operators who became victims of sophisticated psychological and kinetic operations designed to degrade American military effectiveness. Kozlov personally directed the operation that destroyed your father's reputation. Agent Santos informed Sarah with obvious respect for the investigation that had made the current mission possible. Communications we intercepted show that he considered Shadow Mitchell the single greatest threat to his network's operations in the region. Sarah felt the familiar surge of determination that had driven her investigation from its beginning. Learning that her father had been specifically targeted by Kozlov provided personal motivation that complemented her professional commitment to eliminating threats against American personnel throughout the operational theater. Major Lisa Chun from Army Special Operations presented the tactical plan that would enable the team to overcome Kozlov's defensive advantages. The approach required precision shooting at extreme range to neutralize automated defense systems before assault teams could advance through the narrow mountain approaches to the compound. The primary challenge is a series of automated weapons, platforms positioned at ranges exceeding 4,000 meters from any feasible shooting position, Major Chun explained to the assembled specialists. Conventional military marksmen would struggle with these distances under ideal conditions, but the mountain environment adds complexity that makes success extremely unlikely. Sarah had anticipated this moment throughout her preparation for the mission. The shooting skills her father had taught her, combined with experience gained through her investigation and subsequent operations, had prepared her for exactly this type of challenge. The ranges involved exceeded what most people considered possible, but they fell within capabilities that Colonel Mitchell had developed and passed to his daughter. Commander Martinez from Naval Special Warfare described the insertion method that would position the team within striking distance of Kozlov's compound. The approach required helicopter infiltration through mountainous terrain defended by surface-to-air missiles and radar systems designed to detect and engage aircraft at maximum range. The insertion will be conducted during a weather window that provides cloud cover for concealment, but creates wind conditions that will challenge even the most skilled marksmen. Commander Martinez briefed the team. Success depends on precision. Shooting under some of the most difficult environmental conditions we have encountered. Sarah had spent months preparing for the specific challenges presented by high-altitude mountain shooting, working with meteorologists and ballistics experts to understand atmospheric effects that could influence bullet trajectory at extreme ranges. The preparation had included leave-fire exercises at similar altitudes and environmental conditions, developing compensation techniques for factors that most marksmen never encountered. Dr. Robert Kim, the team's technical specialist, presented analysis of the electronic countermeasures and communication systems that Kozlov used to coordinate his global network. Eliminating these capabilities would prevent him from warning other network elements or calling for reinforcement during the assault on his compound. Kozlov's communication array is positioned at the highest point of the compound, approximately 4,300 meters from the nearest feasible shooting position, Dr. Kim explained while highlighting the target on satellite imagery. Destroying this equipment will isolate him from his network and prevent coordinated response to our operation. The range exceeded even the extraordinary shots Sarah had made during her investigation, pushing into territory where atmospheric effects and equipment limitations combined to create challenges that tested the absolute limits of precision shooting. Success would require everything her father had taught her plus innovations she had developed through her own experience. Sarah's preparation had included extensive work with custom ammunition designed specifically for extreme range engagements in mountain environments. The specialized cartridges incorporated design features that compensated for atmospheric density variations and wind effects that became exponentially more complex at distances exceeding 4,000 meters. Colonel Reeves concluded the briefing with mission timelines and contingency procedures that reflected the high-risk nature of the operation. The assault on Kozlov's compound represented the culmination of years of investigation and preparation, with success potentially eliminating threats that had plagued American operations throughout multiple theaters of conflict. This mission provides the opportunity to eliminate the leadership of a network that has caused casualties among our finest personnel for nearly a decade. Colonel Reeves addressed the team with obvious gravity. Success will prevent future attacks while providing justice for those who have been killed or maligned through Kozlov's operations. Sarah felt the weight of representing not only her father's memory, but also the dozens of other operators who had been targeted by Kozlov's network. The mission carried significance that extended far beyond personal vindication to strategic effects that could protect American personnel for generations. The helicopter insertion began at dawn, with the team flying through mountain valleys, shrouded in clouds that provided concealment while creating turbulence that challenged even experienced pilots. Sarah's equipment included her father's custom rifle, modified with modern optics and ballistics computers, designed to enhance accuracy at extreme ranges. The landing zone was positioned on a ridgeline that provided sight lines to Kozlov's compound, while remaining beyond the range of his defensive systems. The approach required a climb through terrain that tested physical conditioning while carrying specialized equipment needed for the precision shooting that would enable the assault. Sarah's shooting position was established behind natural cover that concealed her presence while providing the stable platform necessary for extreme range engagements. The view through her scope revealed Kozlov's compound in detail, including the communication array that represented her primary target and the automated weapon systems that threatened the assault teams. The atmospheric conditions were even more challenging than anticipated, with wind patterns that changed direction and velocity unpredictably as air masses moved through the mountain valleys. Sarah's ballistics computer provided initial calculations, but success would depend on reading environmental conditions that machines could not measure accurately. Commander Martinez's assault teams were positioned and covered approaches that would allow rapid movement toward the compound once the automated defenses were neutralized. Their success depended entirely on Sarah's ability to eliminate multiple targets at ranges that exceeded the capabilities of most military marksmen. The first target was an automated weapons platform positioned at 4,100 meters, its sensors and firing mechanism requiring precise hits to disable effectively. Sarah's scope revealed details of the target's construction, while her ballistics computer calculated compensation for atmospheric effects that could deflect bullets by several feet at such distances. Her breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that preceded precision shots, each cycle bringing deeper focus and steadier body position. The custom rifle felt familiar despite the extreme conditions, its characteristics unchanged from countless training sessions that had prepared her for this moment. The trigger break was smooth and precise, occurring at the optimal moment in her breathing cycle, while atmospheric conditions provided the best opportunity for success. The bullet's flight time exceeded 5 seconds at the extreme range, during which Sarah maintained her sight picture to observe any atmospheric effects that might influence subsequent shots. The impact was visible through her scope as a small explosion that indicated successful destruction of the automated weapons platform. The precision required had pushed beyond normal marksmanship into territory where success depended as much on environmental prediction as shooting skill. The second target was positioned at an even greater range, requiring Sarah to adjust her calculations for atmospheric effects that became increasingly complex with distance. The communication array at 4,300 meters represented the extreme limit of what her equipment could accomplish under the challenging mountain conditions. Sarah's scope revealed wind indicators throughout the bullet's projected flight path, showing atmospheric conditions that would require precise timing for optimal results. Her father's training had emphasized the importance of patience in extreme-range shooting, waiting for environmental conditions that provided the best opportunity for success. The shot was executed during a brief lull in wind activity, with atmospheric conditions as stable as they were likely to become in the mountain environment. The bullet's trajectory carried it through multiple layers of air with different density and movement characteristics, requiring compensation that pushed beyond standard ballistics calculations. The communication array erupted in sparks and smoke as the bullet destroyed critical components, isolating Kozlov from his global network while eliminating his ability to coordinate defensive responses. The success of both extreme-range shots enabled Commander Martinez to initiate the assault that would capture or eliminate the man responsible for years of attacks on American personnel. The assault teams advanced rapidly through the compound's outer defenses, benefiting from the elimination of automated systems that would have made their approach impossible. Sarah maintained overwatch with her rifle, ready to engage additional targets that might threaten the advancing operators. Kozlov was captured alive after brief resistance, his apprehension providing intelligence opportunities that could lead to further dismantling of the network he had directed for decades. The man responsible for Operation Blackwater and her father's death was finally in custody, facing justice for crimes that had affected countless American families. Sarah watched through her scope as Kozlov was secured by the assault team, feeling profound satisfaction that her investigation had ultimately led to his capture. The impossible shots that had enabled the mission's success represented the culmination of training that began with her father and continued through her own determination to seek justice. Commander Martinez's voice came through her earpiece with confirmation that the primary objective had been achieved and that Kozlov was secured for extraction. The mission that had seemed impossible was succeeding through combination of innovative tactics and precision shooting that exceeded normal expectations. The extraction proceeded smoothly, with Kozlov and recovered intelligence materials being evacuated by helicopter while Sarah maintained security overwatch from her shooting position. The successful conclusion of the mission represented justice for her father while eliminating threats that had plagued American operations for years. Colonel Reeves personally thanked Sarah for the precision shooting that had made the mission possible, acknowledging that the extreme-range engagements had exceeded what anyone thought achievable under the challenging conditions. Her father's training and her own dedication had combined to accomplish something truly extraordinary. The intelligence recovered from Kozlov's compound revealed the full scope of his network's operations against American interests, providing information that would enable additional missions to eliminate remaining threats. Sarah's investigation had initiated a process that was systematically dismantling an enemy organization that had operated against the United States for decades. Agent Santos reported that Kozlov was providing detailed information about his network's operations in exchange for consideration during prosecution. The intelligence he provided was enabling operations throughout multiple countries that were eliminating threats and recovering stolen American technology and classified information. Sarah's role in the mission had demonstrated the value of combining analytical investigation with operational capabilities, creating synergies that enhanced both intelligence gathering and direct action missions. Her unique background was enabling contributions that traditional specialists might not achieve working separately. The recognition Sarah received for the mission's success included assignment to a new joint task force responsible for identifying and eliminating sophisticated threats against American interests worldwide. Her proven ability to investigate complex conspiracies while executing precision operations at extreme range made her invaluable for the most challenging missions. Major Chun informed Sarah that the shooting techniques she had demonstrated were being incorporated into advanced training programs for military marksmen. The extreme range capabilities she had developed were pushing the boundaries of what military personnel could accomplish with precision weapon systems. Dr. Kim's analysis of the mission revealed that Sarah's shots had achieved precision that exceeded the theoretical accuracy limits of most rifle systems under the atmospheric conditions present during the operation. The success had required not only exceptional skill, but also innovations in technique that advanced the state of military marksmanship. Sarah reflected on how her journey from supply contractor to operational specialist had been driven by determination to honor her father's memory while protecting American personnel from sophisticated threats. The mission in Myanmar represented both personal vindication and professional achievement that would enable continued contributions to national security. The custom rifle that had belonged to her father was being retired to a place of honor in the Special Operations Museum, its final mission having achieved justice for the man who had carried it during years of distinguished service. Sarah's use of the weapon to eliminate the threats responsible for his death provided closure that completed her quest for truth and justice. Commander Martinez described how the mission's success was enabling follow-up operations that were systematically eliminating Kozlov's network throughout Asia and beyond. The intelligence recovered from the compound was providing targeting information for missions that would prevent future attacks on American personnel and interests. Sarah's new assignment would involve similar investigations and operations targeting threats that conventional intelligence methods might miss. Her proven ability to identify patterns in seemingly unrelated data while executing precision missions under extreme conditions made her essential for the most challenging national security missions. The apartment in Okinawa where Sarah was staying temporarily displayed certificates and commendations, recognizing her contributions to operations that had eliminated significant threats to American interests. The recognition represented validation of her father's training and her own determination to use those skills in service of the country they both loved. Looking toward the Pacific Ocean from her apartment window, Sarah felt satisfaction that her impossible journey from invisible supply clerk to elite operational specialist had achieved justice for her father while protecting countless American personnel from sophisticated threats. The shot that had started everything at Camp Pendleton had led to capabilities and recognition that exceeded anything she could have imagined. The secure communication system displayed orders for her next assignment, directing her to investigate potential threats in Eastern Europe where similar patterns of equipment sabotage and personnel targeting had been detected. The mission would apply everything she had learned while facing new challenges that tested the limits of her analytical and operational capabilities. Sarah understood that her unique combination of investigative skills and precision shooting abilities would continue enabling contributions to missions that protected American interests throughout regions where conventional approaches might fail. The impossible had become possible through determination, training, and unwavering commitment to justice and truth. Her father's legacy lived on through her continued service, while the techniques and capabilities she had developed were being passed to new generations of military personnel who would face similar challenges in protecting American interests worldwide. The impossible shot had opened possibilities that would continue creating strategic effects for years to come. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.